This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A deadly typhoon on the other side of the world is having reverberating effects here in Manitoba. Typhoon Feng has weakened and is heading for Taiwan after causing destruction and death in the Philippines. People are coming back after the storm displaced about 1.5 million residents over the weekend. Officials say at least 8 people were killed. Entire provinces lost power and 1,000 homes were damaged after the typhoon made landfall Sunday. It follows Typhoon Kalmagi, which left 224 dead in the Philippines last week. Now, with more than 90,000 Filipinos living here in Manitoba, the impact is widespread. With communication in some areas still down, people are worried about family and friends and looking to find out how they can help from afar. CBC's Mike Arsenault has more.
Building floors fill up with seawater. Giant waves crashing onto houses, drenching streets. This is the impact of Super Typhoon Feng that burst through parts of northeast Philippines Sunday. Winnipegger Ali Gonzalo says when he heard about the disaster, the first thing he did was reach out to his family in the area.
My hometown is just experiencing like strong winds, but no strong heavy rains. So I feel lucky still, despite all of that.
Gonzalo immigrated to Winnipeg from the Philippines in 2016, but has a lot of extended family still living there. He knows firsthand the impact of living through a super typhoon. He experienced one in the Philippines in 2008 and says recovering takes a lot of time.
Just physically speaking, but also like the emotional toil that it takes on you. You know, like seeing your place get like destroyed, your memories just literally getting washed away and stuff like that. It really does something to you.
Feng hit the Philippines while the country was still dealing with the devastation brought by Typhoon Kalmagi, which left at least 224 people dead last week. The Philippine Canadian Centre of Manitoba says they're ready to support the people impacted by the typhoon.
PCCM is offering an emergency fundraising efforts for the affected families in need of assistance. But at this time, we have not yet received any reports of such needs.
Gonzalo says even though his family hasn't been directly impacted yet, he's still on edge.
Even though right now things seem okay, you can't just be complacent and just assume that it's going to be okay from that point on.
The Philippines is hit by about 20 typhoons and storms each year and is one of the world's most disaster-prone countries. The Philippine Canadian Centre of Manitoba says if they get the call, they'll organize donation drives and breakfast fundraisers where money from the meals go towards relief efforts. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The chief of a Manitoba First Nation has been charged with a historical sexual assault of a minor. Sioux Valley Dakota Nation Chief Vincent Tatchin was arrested last week. RCMP say a woman came forward in May to report she'd been sexually assaulted in 1984. In order to protect her identity, neither her name nor the community where the assault took place is being released. The victim says the incident happened when she was a teenager under the age of 16 and that the suspect was 24 at the time. Tatchin is currently running for re-election with a vote in the community set for Thursday. Thousands of criminal cases and convictions across the province could now be in jeopardy. Files are being pulled and cases reviewed after officers involved in gathering evidence must now deal with their own corruption charges. Now the work to go over all their former cases is mounting. But as CBC's Ian Fraser reports, just how much work this will require is anybody's guess.
Lawyers say they're overwhelmed after the province ordered a review of all court cases involving 4 Winnipeg police officers facing charges of corruption. Attorneys were told to pull old files and review documents, with the province only helping financially if the case gets appealed. But now the Justice Minister says that's changing.
The funding is there to ensure that they're able to support these reviews.
The government revealed Monday defense attorneys can soon apply to legal aid for compensation to review old cases, not just appeals. Christopher Gamby is with the group representing criminal defense lawyers in Manitoba.
It's definitely a positive development to the story.
The story started a year ago when a number of officers were charged with various offenses, including breach of trust. One of them, Constable Elston Bostock, pleaded guilty just last week. He admitted to stealing money and drugs, sharing a photo of a half-naked dead woman, and obstructing justice. Wiebe says it makes sense to review the 2,300 cases based on evidence from these 4 officers to ensure justice was carried out.
We don't anticipate a huge number of cases coming forward, but of course we want to be thorough and we want to be sure.
Before the government announced the new help for lawyers, Gamby said in an earlier interview attorneys were questioning if they should be involved in the reviews.
If you've represented somebody on a matter, perhaps it didn't go their way, they were convicted at trial, are you then obligated to conduct the appeal? I don't know that you are.
Gamby says it remains to be seen if the promised compensation will satisfy lawyer concerns. After all, he says attorneys are being asked to fix a problem they did not cause. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, it's Grey Cup week in Winnipeg, and soon fans from all across the country will arrive in the city for all the festivities. The championship game and other events are expected to bring in millions of dollars. And even though the hometown team isn't in the big game, Winnipeggers are still looking forward to taking it all in. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
The Canadian Football League's biggest prize arrived in style. Kicking off the league's biggest week of the year.
You too? There you go, right here.
Fans lined up Monday on Portage Avenue to get a photo with the Grey Cup.
We like to think that Winnipeg is like such a centerpiece for the CFL, so I think it's awesome that the Grey Cup is here, and I think it's a great series of festivities. Everyone's going to have a good time.
The province estimates Grey Cup week will be a $90 million boost to the economy. Sunday's championship game is sold out. There are also free and paid events happening in downtown Winnipeg as part of the Grey Cup Festival.
An event like the Grey Cup is great for hotels, for restaurants, and for our museums and forks and the special places that make Winnipeg unique.
Devil May Care Brewing Company is hoping to cash in on some of the excitement.
We're a bit of an unknown quantity out there, one of the smallest breweries certainly in the city and in the province. So any opportunity to show people what we do well is definitely something that I look forward to.
The Manitoba Hotel Association says hotel space is filling up quickly. Michael Ju says there are more than 7,000 rentable rooms.
It'll be a nice large boost, as I think we're expecting likely around 5,000 rooms a night, which is obviously great to see.
It's the first time since 2018 the Blue Bombers aren't playing for the Grey Cup. The Montreal Alouettes beat them in the playoffs. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are their biggest rival. So who are Winnipeggers cheering for?
That's a tough question. What about you guys? Are you going to be cheering for the Riders?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
What about you?
Probably.
Who am I going to root for? I'm not certain yet, but I just would like to expect to see a good game.
For others, the choice is a bit more clear.
Oh, it's fantastic. There'd be nothing sweeter than to win the Grey Cup in Princess Auto Stadium.
And see his team win the Grey Cup for the first time since 2013. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As temperatures drop, Winnipeg outreach groups and shelters are in desperate need of warm clothes. Morgan's Warriors provide support to vulnerable people in Winnipeg multiple times a week, providing food, water, and clothing. It says people who are homeless or have been living in encampments aren't prepared for the cold weather.
We know how cold Winnipeg can get in our winters, right? Minus 30, minus 40 with the wind chill. Already, people are struggling out there. And our biggest concern is, people are going to fall asleep under the influence and just not wake up.
Donations can be dropped off at Thunderbird House. All right, time to bring in Riley Lachuk. And Riley, with the big game happening this weekend, tons of festivities outside all week long. What's the weather going to be like for everyone?
Well, we are looking at getting back into a bit of a warming trend as we get through the week, Brittany. Today, though, Boy, oh boy, story of the wind across the Red River Valley into parts of the Interlake. Winnipeg right now looking at gusts as we head into the early evening here, gusting up to 65 kilometers an hour. Saw a gust over 70 earlier in the afternoon, and not as windy back to the west. We've also started to see some warming happening with some warmer air starting to push into the province as we get into the evening. So Winnipeg topping out around -1 so far through the day. I think we'll see that temperature climbing slightly as we get into the overnight hours. +4 in Dauphin, for example, though. And you can see where that clearing is starting to happen. That's some warmer air starting to push into the province. We will get into, I think, some clear breaks in Winnipeg through the overnight hours. Temperature hovers around the freezing mark overnight tonight. We'll see the wind picking up again as we get into the day tomorrow. So still looking at clouds featuring for the most part. Chances of some scattered showers, Brittany, and temperatures above seasonal once again as we get into the day on Tuesday.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
A UK woman is looking for compensation after a Manitoba cemetery lost her father's remains. Why the company says it's not their fault. More on that ahead. He fought in the Second World War. Now his daughter is fighting a battle in his death to make sure he's properly honored. After searching for her estranged father's burial site for nearly a decade, Elizabeth Patrick is no closer to actually finding her dad. When his grave was exhumed so he could be transferred to a military cemetery, they discovered the grave was empty. Now she's fighting the company who claims it's not their problem. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the details.
I really don't know how to tell you this, but your father's grave is empty.
That was the shocking news that Elizabeth Patrick got back in May. Patrick's estranged father, Gordon Patrick, was a Second World War veteran who spent his final years in Canada. After a decade of searching, she discovered he was buried in Green Acres just outside of Winnipeg.
He had no family, so therefore he wasn't recognized as a veteran at all, didn't have a headstone.
Patrick planned to move her father to the Field of Honor in Woodland, Ontario. There, he'd receive a headstone for veterans and be buried next to his grandson, who also served in the military. But without a body, Patrick's father doesn't qualify. Green Acres is owned by Service Corporation International. In July, they told Patrick in an email, Service Corporation International believe that locating Sergeant Patrick's remains on their property is unlikely. SCI indicated they were interested in a settlement.
They offered to pay me $2,500 for damages and upset and however you want to frame that.
Patrick made a counteroffer. Last week, SCI emailed her to say they aren't liable for the missing body because he was buried before they took ownership. Further, Ms. Patrick's demand is excessive, and my clients do not feel that it is worthwhile to respond. Green Acres was owned by Alderwoods Group until the company was sold to SCI in 2006. One Winnipeg lawyer says SCI's liability for the missing body could depend on the details of the sale.
Did you buy the company? If you bought all the shares of the company, then you are the company, and you are liable for the wrongs of the company.
Troy Harwood Jones believes the Manitoba Cemeteries Act could also make them accountable.
Cemetery company will not be able to show that it's met the requirements of the Act by failing to keep proper records.
Patrick is hopeful SCI will make her a reasonable offer and help give her father a veteran's burial.
You know, it is Remembrance Day, it's Veterans Day. He was never remembered, he was never honored.
Patrick worked out a deal to put a replica headstone next to her son's grave in Ontario, but she'll have to pay for it herself. She hopes a settlement will cover the cost. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An American soldier who fought in the Second World War for a Canadian military unit is now the subject of another fight. His family in the U.S., along with a Canadian regiment, says he deserves to be properly honored for an incredible act of bravery. CBC's Liam Britton has more.
Beneath this simple plaque lies Millard Allison, better known as Tex.
When you see somebody actually do the type of thing he did with no regard to his own safety to save the other people, that is basically the definition of hero in the military.
Allison was an American, but he joined the British Columbia Regiment in the Second World War.
Tex Allison's tank goes first.
In April 1945, he led a tank advance over a canal in western Germany. His commander's vehicle was hit and in flames. Allison ran through enemy gunfire, carried his commander to safety, then dashed back for another survivor. And despite being badly burned, Allison then sped to his own tank and fought for 2 days, destroying 3 vehicles and killing 50 enemy soldiers.
My grandfather, after the war.
Allison was nominated for a Victoria Cross, Canada's highest award for military bravery. But the medal was downgraded to a Distinguished Conduct Medal.
Tanks of the 4th Canadian Armored Div.
The regiment's historian argues it's because Allison deserted the U.S. Army before his country was at war to join the fight sooner.
There's going to be media and press, and it's probably going to come up pretty quickly that this person is missing from the United States Army. It would be best if we just quietly downgraded it.
Allison left Canada for Texas after the war. There he was arrested for desertion.
So he was in a tank made of this metal.
And this time, it was Canadians joining his fight.
And he wrote a long and a high praise letter directly to the general in charge of the court-martial that if they didn't want him anymore, the Canadian Army would love to have him back.
But in the end, Allison was convicted. His grandson is lobbying officials in Canada, the U.S., even King Charles, to get his grandpa an honorable discharge and upgrade his medal.
He was a hero for both countries, and then he was just kind of swept under the rug.
Hand-drawn maps.
His old regiment is fundraising for a headstone, telling of his Canadian and U.S. service. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
CBC will live stream the province's large Remembrance Day ceremony tomorrow. Watch for our live stream on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. We'll bring you the Remembrance Day service at the RBC Convention Centre. It's scheduled to begin at 10:40. That's okay. You got to see the side of my head.
Yes.
It's a good thing I brushed both sides. Sometimes that happens. Lots of events happening around the province tomorrow to mark Remembrance Day, of course, at the Convention Centre.
Yeah.
And, of course, the big one in Ottawa as well.
Yeah. Temperatures are looking actually above seasonal. So if you're planning to head to one of the outdoor ceremonies in the province tomorrow, should be pretty decent. Yes, dress for fall weather, but you know what? We're not looking at any major snowstorms or any major wind, at least in the morning. I think we do get back into some wind as we get into the afternoon. Lots of activity, upper levels in the atmosphere, which has been driving some of this wind across southern Manitoba and parts of the southern prairies. But it's this I really want to draw your attention to, this big Arctic ridge that has formed in the jet stream. That has resulted in some cooler temperatures here in Manitoba that's now pushed further over Ontario and Quebec. And part of this is playing into why places like Toronto, for example, and parts of the greater Toronto area getting 10 to 15 centimeters of snow through the day yesterday, of course, with that cleanup still happening today. So some very cool air to the east. We're replacing that with a ridge of high pressure to the west of us that will start to warm temperatures up as we get through the evening tonight here in Manitoba. For now, though, low pressure over the Northwest Territory starts to push further east, and along this frontal boundary, we do get into some light snow through northern Manitoba, pretty broadly Norway House through Island Lake, along the Hudson Bay coast through the overnight hours. Still a few stray flurries first thing in the morning along the Hudson Bay coast, but back to the west and to southwestern parts of the province into a sunnier start tomorrow. I do think we should expect at least a bit more cloud cover here in the Red River Valley first thing, but I do think it's a lot brighter tomorrow, particularly once we get into the afternoon tomorrow. So I do expect a bit more sun tomorrow. In behind this, the winds do start to pick up again as we get through the day on Tuesday. We do start to see things calming down a bit into Wednesday, Thursday, and skies, at least through south and central parts of the province, remaining quite a bit brighter as we get through into the day on Thursday evening, even with still a few lingering flurries into parts of northern Manitoba. What this is translating into is a fairly broad area in northern Manitoba where we do get into 5 to 10 centimeters of snow likely, particularly along the Hudson Bay coast into northeastern parts of the province where you're seeing some of these darker blues and pink colors where we do get into some of that enhanced accumulation as we get into the coming days. But the story in the south, at least, will certainly be the winds as we get into the day tomorrow. Still looking at very gusty winds this evening. We'll start to see those picking up again tomorrow afternoon, more of a westerly flow tomorrow, 30 gusting to 50, and that will help drive temperatures up with that ridge forming to the west of us here. So first thing in the morning, around 1 degree, around the freezing mark really across most of southern Manitoba. Brittany will try for 6, maybe a few scattered showers tomorrow, and temperatures remaining above seasonal right through the week.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
We have much more to come straight after the break. Stay with us. Canada's healthcare system just got a jolt. International health authorities have taken away the country's measles elimination status. Jennifer Yoon looks at why it's happened and what can be done.
For about 30 years, Canada has been able to stop measles from running rampant in our communities. For the past year, it hasn't been able to stop the spread, and now that failure to contain the outbreak is officially being marked. The Pan American Health Organization says Canada has lost its measles elimination status.
Despite the great efforts made by the government, health authorities, and health workers of Canada, the country has lost its measles elimination status.
For years, vaccination levels have been flagging, and some pockets of Canada have historically low vaccine uptake. Last year, the virus got into one of those underprotected communities, Mennonites in southern Ontario, and just kept spreading, hitting parts of Ontario and Alberta particularly hard. Transmission has been ongoing for more than a year now.
It was the introduction of measles from outside Canada into this community. And once it was in the community, then it was able to spread very quickly. And so that's how it happened. But it's, as the Pan American Health Organization told us, it's really an unprecedented outbreak.
Experts say Canada can regain our measles elimination status by lowering barriers to vaccination, fighting misinformation, building trust with vaccine-hesitant communities, and establishing a national vaccine registry.
We are and should be a global leader in public health, health security, and healthcare. And this bruises our reputation. It's a giant wake-up call that we have gaps in our public health infrastructure and that we need to fill those gaps, and we need to do so urgently.
Canada will have to submit a corrective action plan to the Pan American Health Organization, detailing what it plans to do to regain its measles elimination status. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says his government will soon unveil the next round of major projects that could get fast-tracked for approval. The first 5 to get consideration were announced a few months ago. It's part of Carney's strategy to stimulate economic activity during the trade war with the U.S. Another part of that plan is the Buy Canadian policy.
We will build Canadian by becoming our own best customer. With our new Buy Canadian policy, whenever the federal government spends, we will select Canadian suppliers by default, rather than using the current best efforts approach.
Carney says this new approach will apply to all federal agencies. It's not clear how it might apply to private investment. The longest U.S. government shutdown in history could soon come to an end after 8 Democrats broke ranks Sunday night to move forward a Senate deal to reopen the government. But as Katie Nicholson reports, the chaos from the 41-day shutdown continues.
At American airports, tens of thousands of cancellations and delays continue amid air traffic staffing issues as federal employees go more than a month without pay. But an end is in sight.
Today, the Senate voted to start reopening the government.
After 8 senators brokered a deal with Republicans.
We applaud the 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent senator who did the right thing. They decided to put principle over their personal politics.
The move, deeply divisive among Democrats who had been holding out to extend health care credits that are due to expire. All they are guaranteed in the deal is a Senate vote on a health care bill before the second week of December.
It doesn't change the core problem here, which is we need to decisively address the Republican health care crisis.
Once past the Senate, the House could vote on it as early as Wednesday. And so for now, the shutdown grinds on, prompting a Delta Airlines pilot to soothe rattled travelers.
I know we probably have quite a few nervous flyers today. It is perfectly understandable. I want to emphasize this aircraft does not move a single inch unless both my co-captain Michael and myself are absolutely certain it's safe to do so.
While the U.S. president Monday scolded air traffic controllers on social media, telling them they must get back to work now. Anyone who doesn't will be substantially docked, and that he would recommend a bonus of $10,000 for those who didn't take any time off. This as their association head defended their absenteeism and compounded stress working without pay for 41 days.
The added stress leads to fatigue. The fatigue has led to the erosion of safety and the increased risk every day that this shutdown drags on.
A shutdown that may soon end, but take weeks, possibly months, for those affected to shake off. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
In another development from Washington, Trump ally Rudy Giuliani is getting what amounts to a symbolic pardon over allegations he was part of a scheme to overturn the 2020 election. Sidney Powell, who was indicted with Giuliani for election interference in Georgia, is also named. But the pardons apply only to federal charges and won't shield them from state-level charges. Powell pleaded guilty to lesser state charges in Georgia, and Giuliani was also indicted in Arizona. The preemptive pardon extends to Trump's former White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, and dozens of others. At least 8 people have been killed in India's capital in a car explosion that also injured 19 others. It happened near one of New Delhi's most recognizable historic monuments, one that attracts thousands of tourists every day. Salima Shivji has the details.
We don't know a lot yet about what exactly led to this explosion near Delhi's Red Fort, a historic landmark and tourist attraction. Investigators are on the scene, forensic experts as well, teams with India's National Security Guard and National Investigation Agency, all of them combing through charred auto parts to try to find some clues to piece together what exactly happened. What we do know is that the blast occurred right before 7 in the evening, a very busy time in a crowded area, very close to Old Delhi's market bazaars. According to Delhi's police commissioner, a slow-moving vehicle approached a red light, stopped, and then that vehicle exploded. The commissioner says there were passengers aboard the vehicle, and he does also say that several cars nearby, at least 6, exploded as a result of that initial explosion, as ambulances and fire trucks rushed to the scene to get to those injured. According to local media outlets, many of the casualties were dead before they even reached hospital. Several others are very seriously injured. Some eyewitnesses reported hearing the loudest explosion they had ever heard in their lives. One man, a local shopkeeper, said he was knocked down 3 times and he thought he was going to die as well. India's Home Affairs Minister Amit Shah visited the site of the explosion as well as the hospital where many of the injured are being treated. He says there will be a thorough investigation and no possibility is being ruled out at this time. He says all options will be investigated immediately, and once the results are known, they will be made public. But still, there are a lot of questions here tonight as the country is grappling with this explosion. Country very much on edge because of this. This is a country that has been scarred in the past by attacks and bombings in urban areas. There was a string of them in the mid-2000s, blamed on militant groups. So this is a country on edge already. Delhi and Mumbai, big cities, are on high alert, as well as several neighboring states to the capital and border areas as well. And security is being ramped up around religious sites in parts of the country as this investigation continues. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Dehradun, India.
This year's UN Climate Summit has kicked off in Brazil. Organizers of COP30 are urging countries to commit to more ambitious climate action plans to advance the Paris Agreement goals. Susan Ormiston has the latest from Belém.
The delegates here very aware that this is a very politically difficult time for climate change, with a climate denier in the White House, amongst other economic pressures and attention on wars. So at the official opening of COP30 this morning, we heard from the Brazilian president talking about misinformation about climate change.
Now it's the moment to impose a new defeat to the denialists. Without the Paris Agreement, the world would suffer with a catastrophic warming up of almost 5 degrees till the end of this century. So we're moving to the right direction, but at the wrong speed.
We also heard a lot about what is working, and that is renewable energy, many countries seeing a surge in the use of renewables, and that's sort of one of the more positive messages coming out of COP30.
This is the growth story of the 21st century, the economic transformation of our age. Those opting out or taking baby steps face stagnation and higher prices, while other economies surge ahead.
Being in an Amazonian city does have a different effect than Dubai or Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in the past few years. People are getting a sense of the transition for countries and areas that are trying to bring themselves up economically, that are underdeveloped in many ways. We saw that Belém was being challenged to have enough spaces for people to sleep. Hotel rooms couldn't fill everything. A lot of people have rented out their condos, and 2 cruise ships are in the river not too far from here, and people are actually staying on those cruise ships for the conference. This city is at the apex of the Amazon waterway system, not on the actual river, but some of its tributaries. And a boat traveled all the way for 25 days from Ecuador and the Andes to Belém, bringing a group of indigenous leaders. They want a greater voice in what happens in their territories, and they're going to come and have their impact here on COP30 as well. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Belém, Brazil.
Coming up, a police officer guilty of multiple charges. More on the case and the potential impacts of eroded public trust in police. That conversation coming up with a former chief. Stay with us. Last week, veteran police officer Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including breach of trust, theft, and offering an indignity to human remains. Bostock used his position as an officer to fix traffic tickets in exchange for gifts, looked up confidential information, and shared a photo he took of a dead victim. Cash Heat is the former chief of the West Vancouver Police Department, and he says it's concerning and there needs to be changes made within the service.
Well, Winnipeg Police Service has not been without controversy over the years. And I think, like many police agencies, when these things happen, it's something that we have to think about again. We have to look at how we vetted this particular officer, whether integrity tests were in place, whether we did the polygraph, the psychological testing is required, because police agencies have to do whatever they can to make sure that they have the right people within their ranks. For someone like this to be rogue for such a period of time, and given the fact that relatively short career of 20 years is concerning, and I think we're going to have to, or Winnipeg Police Service is certainly going to have to delve into this to make sure that they could have done everything they possibly could have to prevent this. And look at this clearly. What you know and what I have read with respect to this is just an agreement on a state of facts that have gone forward between Crown and Defense. There's probably many, many more that weren't agreed to put forward as a statement of facts. So we don't know the totality of this. We don't know what happened to the other police officers that were with him during the activities that he partook in. We're not sure what happened to those other police officers that were given gifts to turn a blind eye to something. You know, those allegations that you look at with the information that's available, there's a lot more that, in my opinion, that needs to be done to make sure that those that were accessory to the behavior of this individual are dealt with in a significant fashion to deter this activity from occurring as the Winnipeg Police Service goes forward serving the public.
It was interesting because you said we don't know how he was vetted, but when you think if this is over at least a period of 8 years, which we understand and know that to be fact, and you talk about preventing this, does some of the idea of preventing this come not just at the vetting process, but at how we keep watch within the service over periods of time? What can be put in place in police systems to maintain checking on officers?
Well, let me tell you, it's not only the vetting process of how we recruit, hire, and train these people, it's how we supervise them and how we discipline them if, in fact, that something untoward does happen at the outset to deter that activity. A lot is looked at. Supervisory actions are certainly the most prevalent that we need to look at, but you could do integrity tests where, in fact, we know police agencies, and this may happen, we may not even know it, will do setups where, in fact, for example, in police agencies that I'm aware of, they'll have a car break-in, a wallet will be in the car, there'll be some money in the car, and they'll have cameras set up to see what happened. Now, it appears they did some type of integrity after the fact to gather evidence here, but these are testing that has to be done continually. But the significant factor that's going to prevent this from perpetuating throughout an organization into some type of corruption is the fact we have to have proper supervisory people in place, and we certainly have to have discipline to deter this activity. This will be something that I'm hoping will be looked at within the Winnipeg Police Service, and not just look at Mr. Bostock as an individual and we got the bad apple and the rest are fine. No, it has to be a continual insurance of credibility within the police agency.
So let me read what Winnipeg Police Chief Bowers did vow to do. He vowed to amend the Police Services Act, this is part of what he said, and to publish disciplinary action in respect to police misconduct. Is that sufficient to start rebuilding public trust? And why aren't we publishing that anyway?
No, we should be publishing. We should be as transparent as we can with respect to that. But that is still not going to deter the people from being involved in the activity. There's so much more that has to be done by our police leaders to ensure we have integrity within our police organization. So that's just one aspect of it. What you want to do is you want to prevent this behavior from finding its way into your police service, into any of the public services to begin with. And I think that is paramount here. And if you do identify it, you've got to make sure you do whatever you can to deal with it and ensure that whatever fracture there was that allowed this to continue is dealt with almost immediately, because trust in police is paramount for us to live and work and play in a civil society. And we certainly don't want to go down the road of having rogues like this within our services, especially when the men and women are out there each and every shift serving in a very professional manner. And that's what we want. But those that do go astray need to be dealt with forthwith, and you've got to prevent it from happening again.
Hundreds of people gathered over the weekend to honor and remember Indigenous veterans, and for many, it was an emotional day. Indigenous Veterans Day was recognized for the first time since being enshrined in provincial law earlier this week. For Randy Gage, the day marked an end to years of hard work. Gage is a Vietnam-era veteran who served for the U.S. Army but has lived in Manitoba for over 3 decades. She helped make Indigenous Veterans Day a reality in 1993 and got it officially recognized by the province a year later.
I worked 31 years. Manitoba's got it. I'm proud of all of you across the country. You know, ocean to ocean, ocean to border, I'm proud of all of you. And if nobody else has said it, welcome home.
The Indigenous Veterans Day Act received royal assent in the province last Thursday, marking November 8th as the official date. Gage says the law is meaningful for veterans and can help inspire the next generation of Indigenous troops. Riley's back in now, and I know that we saw some snowflakes over the weekend, but already this shaping up to be a warmer, less snowy Remembrance Day than in many, many years past.
Yeah, and it's a stretch that will last as we get into the coming weeks here, even Brittany, into parts of the province, into the coming week, I should say, at least. Let's start with your dog walking forecast. To start, maybe I should stay on mic 3. Or mic 2? Let's do mic 2. Okay. If mic 2's up, I'll just grab mic 2 because these things happen sometimes. Okay, so let's start with your dog walking forecast. And we have a rescue to show you tonight. This is Willow. Thank you, Pauline, for sending this picture in. Willow, of course, living her very, very best life. You can always send your pictures to talkback at cbc.ca. And I'm going to appear right over here with a temperature of 1 degree first thing in the morning. Northwest winds gusting up to 50 in the afternoon. So we are looking at a bit of extra wind into the forecast tomorrow and still looking at temperatures above seasonal for this time of the year. Wanted to show you snow depth because we are seeing, a bit of skiff of snow, which I'll show you toward the end of the show here. But into the Riding Mountains, you can see some of that darker blue shading where we do see some of the higher accumulations that we've seen, particularly from that first clipper system that we saw push through the province last week with some higher amounts into parts of northern Manitoba. Okay, look at your forecast as we get into the overnight period tonight, looking at temperatures today at least. What I wanted to show you was this big trough that you see in the jet stream back into parts of the U.S. Midwest and into parts of southern Ontario here, where we do have temperatures that barely cracked -3 in Toronto this afternoon. But compare that to what we've seen through the northern or into parts of Western Canada, 15 in Calgary, 10s through Saskatoon, Regina, -3 in Churchill. Okay, look at your forecast overnight tonight. And we are looking at temperatures actually warming up slightly. So temperatures around the freezing mark into the overnight hours tonight, -2 in Gimli, -3, cloudy periods in Peguis. Then we see some snow snow pushing into northern Manitoba. And this is a general 5 to 10 centimeters through the overnight hours. We'll see this tapering off as we get into the day tomorrow. 4 degrees, a mix of sun and clouds through the Pas and OCN, 2 in Lynn Lake, maybe a few flurries into the afternoon. In southern Manitoba, a lot brighter, particularly the further west you are. Looking at 7 in Brandon, a bit windy through the day tomorrow. 7 in Portage as well by the afternoon, and maybe a few stray flurries, Brittany, into northwestern Ontario. Your 7 days coming up.
All right, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Winnipeg will welcome professional women's hockey in a special game this season. The Professional Women's Hockey League announced our city as one of 16 neutral site games for its 3rd season. Half the games will be played in Canada. It's part of the PWHL Takeover Tour. Seattle and Vancouver were part of it last year and were later granted the league's first 2 expansion teams. Canada Life Centre will host Montreal and Ottawa on March 22nd. The PWHL says last year's Takeover Tour drew more than 123,000 fans over those 9 games. Still ahead, back together, the tour some have waited decades for. Well, they're Canadian rock legends, and for the first time in decades, they'll tour together as a band. Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman are getting the band back together. They will tour as the Guess Who for the first time in 23 years this upcoming year. The 10-date tour begins in Moncton on May 26th. It includes stops in Toronto, Montreal, Saskatoon, Calgary, and Edmonton. Don Felder, formerly of the Eagles, is the opening act for all dates. And of course, there will be a stop here in Winnipeg on June 5th at Canada Life Centre.
Okay, time for a look at your 7-day forecast now. And as we get into the coming days here, we're really looking at temperatures surging above seasonal for this time of the year. So a pair of 6s through Tuesday and Wednesday. Still a bit breezy into the morning on Wednesday, I think. Then things are a bit calmer, closer to seasonal into Thursday at 4 degrees. Yeah, 9 degrees on Friday with a gusty southeasterly wind, and then temperatures do start to stabilize a bit. Right now, looking at Grey Cup on Sunday, temperature around 1 degree by the time the game gets underway. So prepare if you're heading out for a bit of a chillier one as we get into the day tomorrow. Okay, I did want to show a weather picture. This one's actually from me. When I was flying back into the city, took a quick picture as we were landing at the airport. This is the Tuxedo Golf Club you're looking at with a skiff of snow on the ground there, Assiniboine Park over here, and of course downtown back here. So still a little bit of snow on the ground in parts of Winnipeg. It's a skiff, if that, no major accumulations, but certainly parts of the province of Brittany are looking at some snowy conditions over the next 24 hours. Grill season may be over for some, but some Manitobans in space, I should say, it's just getting started.
That's right. Manitobans grill all winter
exactly.
long. Astronauts on China's space station got a significant upgrade to their kitchen, and their historic meal is tonight's Daily Lift. Astronauts are enjoying the first barbecue meal in space. They successfully grilled, of course, chicken wings aboard the Chinese space station in microgravity.
It's thanks to a new hot air oven, which allows smokeless and residue-free cooking. The crew said the meat had the perfect texture, taste, and smell. They also apparently made the steak using this new hot air oven.
Got to be better than having to rehydrate some of that food that they normally get. Imagine being up there for a while and finally getting chicken wing.
To have a chicken wing,
right?
I know. That does sound really good.
Well, maybe I'll have chicken wings tonight. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.